Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tosh Customs and today we'll be looking at my Dishonored-Inspired custom Mezco figure. I do have his alternate porcelain head mask off to the side, and the reason why it's off to the side for the time being is it sort of tints the background a little bit pink because the camera tries to focus on the head, and the head's mostly painted white, so it just has some trouble with that. So it's off to the side, but when we get to the accessory section we will look at it. But just so you know, the review will have the alternate head in it. Like I said before, this is my Dishonored-Inspired custom. I borrowed heavily from the video games in some areas, but then also took some other places to really just flex a lot more and experiment around with this sort of Victorian industrial style, you know, mixed with a little bit of steampunk. And so a lot of metal inlaid into the suit, working with a lot of leathers and browns, and really trying to pick out individual colors and have a unique color scheme, despite the fact that there's a lot of dust and dirt and worn metal just sort of within this, style or genre of character. So without further ado, I'm going to pop this head off, put the main figure off to the side, and we'll dive right in. So we'll first talk about the two heads, and since I said I put the porcelain head off to the side, we'll bring this one up first. As you can see, sort of the background kind of tints a little bit pink, like up there. So that's just because the camera is trying to focus on the head a little bit, and I really can't find a way to get around that. But anyways, here is the porcelain face mask, and the reason why we made a porcelain face mask is we wanted something, we wanted to have an alternate head sculpt. We just didn't want it to be the, Dishonored-Inspired Corvo mask, which I think turned out great, and I'll talk about it more later. But we wanted something else, and so I was actually originally inspired by Elden Ring. There's a lot of characters in that game who sort of have these statue-esque masks, and so I took a little bit of inspiration from that. I looked up a lot of Greek and Victorian era marble statues, and then sculpted this, and it was honestly really tough. And the reason why is those statues have very subtle wrinkles and expression, and so to get that smooth nature like you see in those forehead wrinkles, or in some of the wrinkles around the nose and mouth there, just took a lot of time to make really smooth. And then after that, I took a concave tool and sketched in this this crack that ran along the side of the face, and we did that just so it got a little bit more character. And like we said, it's based off the Dishonored video game and sort of the damaged or cracked or fallen nature, fallen from grace in some ways. So I didn't want the mask to feel perfect. On the back here, as you can see, or on the sides, we have these gold rings that are sort of connecting this porcelain hard mask to the rest of the face. And then we have more of a sort of leathery texture in the red here. And I chose this red because I wanted to give a pop of color to the character. As I was painting him, I just found that the color scheme was largely browns and blacks. And while that's really cool, I wanted this character to feel very unique, to have some feeling of his own. And it was actually inspired by this original mask. I had painted it all black. The original red leather on this one was also black, and it felt generic in some ways. And so in order to help accentuate the features, the contrast, and it also plays into the suit, I chose this really dark burnt red here. And so we'll see it throughout the rest of the costuming in the figure, but we have it around the back here. Putting that head off to the side for the sake of the rest of the video, I'll bring up the Corvo head now, or the Dishonored-Inspired head. And this one was really fun to make. It was also really tough. There's a lot of asymmetry in the head, especially around all the little metal wires that connect the individual sort of soldered together or welded together faceplates that make up the skull. And so some big highlights of the Dishonored design are the fact that the skull mask is split down the middle. And then what I was noticing when looking at it is there's all these little soldering or weld lines that sort of bring these shards of metal together. And so an important thing for me was to be able to get those soldering lines in the sculpt. And something that I've been learning as I've been 3D modeling and 3D printing is that, because I'm printing at a 1/12 scale, normal details that you and I would see, on something scaled to be lifelike really, really get lost and disappear. And so these different screw holes around the different plates, as well as the solder lines, have to be greatly, greatly exaggerated so that they show up nicely in the print here. And I think they did. And I think this metal just looks really, really nice. I painted it all black originally, and then after that came through with gunmetal and then dry brushed with silver over it. And then after that also ran a black wash at the very end. And so you're getting this nice black inside the cracks of the metal, as well as you're seeing the gunmetal to some of the lighter silver over the soldering lines. And then obviously we have this really, really nice bright pearl gold through the wires and around the lenses of the eyes. Got some nice white in the eyes. If the camera stays focused, like the light off this skull keeps on getting it to unfocus there. And then we have, once again, that burnt red going through the leather or under sections of the mask. And then on the sides, you can see we have these black leather straps that are coming together to this clasp on the back. And I did sculpt that as well. And I specifically wanted these two different heads to have different points of attachment just so that they felt unique. I didn't just want it to look like I swapped out the front of the faces, but they're very, very different in every way. And so I wanted to make two very distinct, unique heads. Something I forgot to point out earlier that I'm going to double back to around now is the shading of this head. If you'll notice, it's when we look at it from the top, it's a little bit more white. When you look at it from the bottom, you see that gold hue. And that's because there is gold mixed in, and I used gold for the shadow of the face. And for the sake of this video, it's not coming out too well. Oh, there we go. You're seeing a little bit better there. You can see that gold underneath there. And so very white on top. And so I sprayed it all white, and then I tilted it up like this. I sprayed pearl gold, and then I tilted it sort of at a slightly lower angle and sprayed white again. And so just to make sure that the gold is only in the undersections, the lower angle of the face, and then the rest sits white. And so I've created this sort of light sparkly shadow in the face there. So you get the contrast, and you're able to appreciate the features of the face, but it's not as high of a contrast as if I was just sort of doing like a zenith shadowing or something like that, where it's like a white and black shadow. This is a white and a gold, and so both are still playing against the light very, very nicely. So it adds a little bit, it keeps it a little bit more cohesive, especially since the material is supposed to be mimicking porcelain. So yeah, I think that covers most of the head right there. I mean, I'm just really proud of how this turns out. I could look at it forever. I originally printed out a different model, and I realized that the head was a little bit too circular, so I actually had to thin this head out. And then I also accentuated a lot of the features, really working on making all these metal shard pieces feel really sharp. And so I'm really proud of how this turned out. I think it's a good rendition or reimagining of the mask. A lot of it is still the same, but I had to take liberties in terms of the way these teeth were designed, as well as the metal rods, and some of the solder lines, just to keep it individual. It's not a one-to-one copy, including the attachment method around the back. It's not a one-to-one copy of the video game because I don't want to steal art, or I don't want to any kind of design, intellectual property, anything like that. I don't want to infringe on those things. So let's look at the hands real quick. On the right hand, he has normal hands, just normal sort of flesh hands. And this is based off of the, we're using the Mezco exclusive Captain Nemo figure as a base. And so these are all Captain Nemo's hands. The brown wraps have been repainted. I still wanted to pick out those little gold rings on the hands. And then for this character, we're working with a lot of sort of magic relics. And so I put some jade green into this little gold medallion piece here. It almost reminds me of that time stone in Doctor Strange's Eye of Agamotto, but obviously it's not. But I like that. It's a good contrast, and it still keeps that that glow through the medallion. So I think that turned out really, really nicely, and that's the way it is for all the hands. So those are all the right hands. He's got a bunch of them. Coming to the left hands now, we have this metal glove, and as I was sort of writing out the lore of this, I decided to call it the Left Hand of Judgment. In the Bible, there's a lot of references to God's righteous right hand, and so it would make sense then that the left hand is for those who do not find favor with him. And so sort of following the idea of relics or, sort of like mystical religious items, we have the Left Hand of Judgment that our characters wield in. And so with that, all the hands have been repainted. They were given a black wash and then dry brushed with pearl gold over it. And so as you can see, a lot of those, if the light works, I think it's trying to focus on too many objects. There we go. That's a little bit better. You can see all that nice inlay inside the hands, all picked out in that black wash. The gold brightens it all up again. And then I did dry brush chrome in all the little top parts of these hands, so that you can see those nice cogs and mechanisms inside. So putting those off to the side now, let's look at the accessories. We have quite a few. We first start off with Nemo's pistol, or in this case, Corvair's pistol. It has been repainted. I gave it a black wash and then picked out some other areas of this little steampunk, semi-futuristic pistol, flintlock pistol, revolver style gun in chrome silver, just so that there was some more variance. Originally, this whole gun is just kind of gold. It's just different shades of gold or brass, and it feels a little bit boring. So I added some chrome silver in, especially since with the hands, we're also seeing gold with chrome silver inner workings. So it felt appropriate to do the same on the gun. So here we go. There's a good look at the gun right there. Moving on, we also have a tomahawk. And the reason I wanted a tomahawk was I wanted him to have a smaller bladed secondary weapon. There, as you can see, there is a sword back here, but I wanted something a little bit more handheld, a little bit less long, something for closer quarters. And I was like, I could give him a dagger, but dagger just felt a little bit boring. And so sort of this tomahawk or hatchet feels a little bit more multi-purpose, especially if this character is more of, an assassin, a stealth character. Maybe he can use the back end to be climbing walls, and then, the other axe end for his other assassin-y needs. So I got this off of eBay. I don't remember the seller off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you search up 1/12 tomahawk or axe or hatchet, you'll be able to find it. They were pretty cheap. The model was all right. I had to clean it up a little bit, sand it down a little, but here's how it turned out. I think it turned out great. I dry brushed some chrome silver over the blade, as well as sprayed a clear gloss spray on it, just to seal that metal in, especially for how the storage method is. It couldn't run across some paint rub. So I decided that sealing it was the best way to preserve that nice metallic chrome shine. So we have the hatchet there. Putting it off to the side, the next weapon we have is his sword here. I was going to repaint the blade of the sword, but in looking at it, I think the silver is fine. It gives a little bit of a worn look, once again, sort of ancient relic. And to add to that, I just aged the hilt by putting some black wash in there, just to sort of age the gold. And so that's all there really is to say about the sword. And finally, we come to his Winchester rifle. And, this is sort of semi-future Victorian steampunk era. So I wasn't sure if, historical timeline, the Winchester is a little bit ahead of the time, but, we have a flintlock pistol that looks like this. So I figured we could get away with the Winchester, and just to give us some range in combat, as well as I really like this cocking mechanism here. I can't think of the lever action. I like the lever action a lot, and it felt a little bit ornate to put it in gold to sort of follow with the rest of our color scheme, our nice gold and brass. And so as you can see, we have gold on the lever, as well as gold on all the little bands that are tying the barrel down. And then we have some nice gunmetal over here with this dry brushed wood. This gun originally came all in just 3D printed black resin when I bought it, and I got it from Gridiron Studios, so shout out to them. I did purchase it. I'm not like sponsored or it's free or anything, but shout out to creators who do great work, and so go check out Gridiron on Instagram. And so got some nice weathered gunmetal in there, as well as some dry brushed chrome silver. And as you can see here, the Gridiron does put his initials into the Winchester, so it's Gridiron Studios with the GS, and so I wanted to highlight that in gold. So you got a little bit of gold inlay in there, as well as all these little bolts, if the camera focuses well, all these little bolts that are along these bands here, pick them out in chrome silver as well. So you have gold against some chrome silver on those bolts right there. So really, really cool rifle, and I'll show you how all these different weapons store on the character in just a second. So now, let's bring out the figure of the hour, Craevier. This was a super involved design, and I'm finding that as I continue to work on these original design characters, or video game inspired, or comic book inspired, as I'm allowed to put my own twists on them, I feel like my designs just get more and more complex, especially as I'm learning, you know, just more about costuming layers and things like that. And so to start off, let's talk about where we source the parts. Most of this is the original figure. The body, the undersuit body is all the same, just been repainted head to toe. We have this jacket, which is from the Mezco, I think it was the cut and stitch pack or something like that. And so it's just a trench coat. And then we have our chainmail pads, which are from the McFarlane Witcher figure. So we have that. And then back here, we have our sword sheath, which I got from a fodder lot about 4 years ago now. So I can't tell you what figure that comes from. And then I made my own Winchester rifle sleeve that is also on the back. And both of these are attached to the strap that's running across Craevier's chest here. These two pouches are from a Marvel Legends Punisher figure. I just cut them off, sanded them down, and then attach them in. And it's going to be hard to see, but I actually did cut a notch into the pouches that runs across the back, so that the harness, it's not just glued to the harness, but it's actually sort of fitting onto the harness as if the pouches are sort of clipped on or something. So a little bit more accurate to how they would actually be attached in real life. And I did that one because it looks more accurate, and that's going to be something that the camera's not really going to be able to capture just because of the angles and stuff. But on top of that, it means that they don't sit out as far off the strap. And so in that way, it not only looks like it functions more realistically, but it sits a little bit more realistically also. So that's something important to me. So, and then after that, we do have this hood here. And this hood is actually just glued to the inside of the jacket, and it has a wire running through it so that we are able to pull up the hood and get him into some of those Dishonored, Assassin's Creed style poses. And there's a wire so you can change the shape of the hood and all that kind of stuff. But for the sake of seeing the nice 3D printed head throughout the rest of the review, I'll keep the hood down. I have plenty of pictures on my Instagram, and he's got his hood up in a couple of them. So you'll be able to appreciate them from there. So let's talk about changes now. Obviously, everything's been repainted. And so let's start from the boots. We'll go boots up. So these boots are originally all just sort of one single leather brown color. It's just casted black plastic. And so I repainted everything. As you can see here, there's some gray and some brown that are inside the lower parts of the boot. It's almost got a synthetic honeycomb pattern into it, which once again adds to almost the steampunk futuristic nature of this character. You know, very clearly the style is set in the past, but, you know, maybe some of the technology, you know, is exceeding what we have right now. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a very steampunk style, and so a lot of metal integrated into the suit. And you can see that right here with the hard, you know, this gold capped boot, as well as some of the gold that runs around the back here. And so I picked this out in a pearl gold, ran some black wash over it and stuff like that, just so that we get that weathered look. You know, he's been running around, it's dirty, it's muddy, and so it's going to be a little bit weathered and worn. Originally, when I painted these boots, I didn't have these red highlights on it, and then I was looking at it and I realized that there's this really, really nice stitch pattern that runs all the way around the back of the boot here. And so I decided to pick that out in that burnt red again, that almost like worn royal red. So as you can see, it runs all around the stitching of the boot here. And I think that really, really picks out nicely. You have all those gold detailings and you have some of the red. And the red is important throughout the suit because it is quite sparse. You know, when you look at this guy from the front, you don't really see much red. But as you can see, we have some on the head here. We have it along the shoulder pad. We have red in the wrappings of the sheath. We have it lining these pouches up front. There's no real red in the belt itself. Oh, we do actually, I forgot. We do have red on this top belt. And yeah, there's 2 layered belts here, and so there is red on the top of the 2 belts, this one. And so it runs all the way around, but most of it's hidden by the jacket. But just because it's hidden by the jacket doesn't mean we spared the detail. It still exists. Obviously, we have it in the red of the glove here. And then finally, we have it in the lining of the boot. And so just keeping some coherency in the color scheme throughout the figure, even if it's a little bit sparse. I didn't just want red in the head, but it shows up all around in all these little areas. So the red is very nice in the boot. And once again, just some great weathering on there with the grays and the browns. Coming up to the pants section here, this is all a dark leather brown painted with Angelus leather brown, and then just some dry brushing. So it was all painted black and then painted brown over that, because originally these pants were like a really bright blue, and so they've been completely repainted and now they look totally different. Moving up to the belt, I'm going to pull his arms out and we're going to take a look here. So a lot got done with the belt, and I'm going to try to pull this jacket up as much as possible. One, the shell here has been resculpted into that Dishonored eye, sort of like that outsider's insignia that we see in the game, and that's just a nice little reference. It's, once again, it's not one-to-one with the actual insignia of the character, but it's there in spirit, and it shares some similarities, so another nod to the game. I liked the trident that came with the Nemo character, and that's just something I wanted to keep. I thought it was a really unique buckle design, and so I didn't want to ruin it at all. So I highlighted it in gold, but I wanted some of the other metal bits of this belt. I didn't want it to all be gold, because originally it comes all gold, and it felt a little overbearing. It felt a little bit too weighty and too heavy, and so a decision I had to make through the design of this character was what needs to be gold, what needs to be silver. So we have this, you know, we had the silver gunmetal in the head, so that was very prominent. So then I added the silver into the chainmail of the shoulder pads, and then, or the shoulder plates, I guess, not really pads. And then we have more silver throughout the different areas of the belt. One thing I did do was originally this pistol holster here. You can stick it to the side of his leg. I removed that whole, I guess, like drop leg holster pouch contraption. If you guys own the Nemo figure, you know what I'm talking about. There's like a bunch of interchangeable bits that you can put onto like this side panel here. Removed all of that. Instead, I replaced it with an elastic loop so that we can store the hatchet, and I like it because it sits on his leg, but it gets completely covered up by the coat. And so that allows him to carry, but to just be completely free. And so once again, sort of lands with that stealth option. This holster, since I removed it from that drop leg contraption, I took a peg and I glued it. Actually, I think should be able to remove this holster just very gently. There we go. So I cemented this peg into a loop in the belt there. There's a little ring in there, and I sanded down the inside of it, and then put some super glue and some sculpting putty in there. And so now we have a nice little peg for the pistol to go onto. I don't remember if I put it in the top peg or the bottom peg. Top peg. No, bottom peg. We'll say bottom peg. So we have that right there. On top of that, this used to be a little hanging piece for the sword sheath that comes with Nemo. Obviously, we're not going to have him carrying a big Kraken sword, because that's what the original character comes with. So instead, I sculpted this little crow skull. And so we have this little crow skull that's been highlighted in gold. As you can see, we got more of that red belt looping all the way around. On top of that, there's also some little chrome silver loops that are hanging down from the belt. We have 2 back there, and then 1 also in the front right there. So a lot of details have gone into this belt. I didn't, as much as I knew that it was going to be covered by the jacket, I didn't want to spare any expense, and so everything has been painted and detailed out nicely. Even though you won't see it, it doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. So we did it all. Moving up here to the sort of like leather top part of his costume, I painted this all black, and then I dry brushed a royal blue gold over it, and it stays pretty muted overall, but I chose blue because it's close enough to black without being black itself. That black with that blue dry brush, when you're looking at it from a distance, it doesn't really look blue, but you can tell that it stands out against the rest of the black of the suit, and that was an important thing. I've talked about it a lot before, but using different materials as well as different paints in order to create contrast. And so we're using that very, very deep blue in the back here just to create that contrast, which allows you to appreciate the gloss black of this, this leather harness against the matte black of this, more canvas style trench coat here. This necklace up here has been repainted, and it is from the G.I. Joe Classified Destro figure. And like we talked about relics before, we got some jade green up here. We have the jade green in the hand as well. So let's look at the 2 hands. Let's talk about the regular hand first. This glove piece, I'll be honest, I don't remember where I got it from. It is not the original one that comes with the Captain Nemo figure. I think it is from, I want to say the Kick-Ass movie figure, if I remember correctly. And it's been repainted. I had to hollow out some sections so it would slide over the wrist. But there we go, we have that. And I like that more because the Captain Nemo one, it feels a little bit more piratey, and I didn't want it to, once again, feel so pirate. I wanted to try to move the character away from some of those design elements, and so one of those was changing the way the glove around the wrist looked. And so this gives it a little bit more of a modern look, and a little bit, adds to that more of that cuff of the glove and of the wrap there. Coming to the Left Hand of Judgment, like I mentioned before, everything was blackwashed, and that is the case for all the metal here, and so you're getting a lot of nice, deep, worn, weathered shadows in there, as well as the chrome silver and all the inner workings. You can see it in all the little tubing and piping that's here throughout the gauntlet, and really just working with different colors of metal. You can see some lighter gold, some darker gold, your chrome silvers, and then if we actually come to the inside of the wrist, we have dry brushed chrome silver all through the inside here. You can see that we have our gold buckles against our burnt red, as well as some leather brown on these straps connecting everything. I did that just so that we could bring out some more of the details. We're working with leather brown already, and so having that on the wrist just allows it to not look like it's just all been painted red. Once again, just working with contrast to bring out some extra details in the suit. So now, I think we've covered basically everything. And so with that, let's get him all geared up. And so I have a ribbon that is sitting around, that's looped around the sheath and looped around the back here, as well as the Winchester sleeve. So putting the Winchester in first, all we do is we just grab it and we slide it in, and it sits in there just like so. And because it's on, because it's just on a ribbon there, or string, not really string, yeah, ribbon's the right word. You can adjust it around. You can make it sit a little bit lower if you want. You can have it leaning up higher on the shoulder. I like it higher up on the shoulder because that's the way you're supposed to carry a Winchester sleeve. But, you can display it as you will for the customer. And it is supposed to be oriented with the lever up. And the reason why is because if he has to reach around and grab it with his right hand, that's actually how you'd reach around your back. And if you want to imagine it, you reach around, and here, I'll just show it with his trigger hand. If his hand, if his hand is facing down like so, you reach up, around, and you grab it like that. And so that's why it's oriented lever up, because that's actually how you bend your arm up and back in order to grab it. And so that's how actual Winchester sleeves are supposed to be oriented, which feels a little bit strange to have the lever up, but that's the most ergonomic way to pull your Winchester out. So I learned something fun when I was making the sleeve. I had to look that up and figure out how people held it. And that's what I found off some images and some research. So there we go. The sheath is also along the back, and it is oriented to the right. And talking about ergonomics once again, if you see the pictures, I do have him carrying it in his right hand. He doesn't wield anything in his left hand. One, that's because none of the metal left hands are gripping hands. They're all sort of these gesturing hands, including this little pointy one. So, because of that, I had to ask myself, how is a long sword drawn? In fantasy movies and film, we tend to like the cross draw. So if you see the sword sheath like this, you'd think he would grab it with his left hand and sort of pull it across. But because it's such a long blade, you actually can't grab around and pull it out like that. You'd only probably get it to about here, and then you get stuck trying to pull it out. So as long blades are actually oriented to the same shoulder that it's supposed to be wielded with. So you're able to reach around back and grab it here, and then fully extend your right arm, to pull it out. So once again, another interesting thing I learned while making this character is, different weapons have different draws, and so that's one of them also. So right hand oriented Winchester sleeve, right hand oriented sword and sheath. Coming to the front here, we have a cross draw for the this futuristic flintlock pistol here, and I wanted a cross draw because I thought that was the best way to set up the costume design. I knew I wanted the bladed secondary, and I ended up landing with the tomahawk there. And so the tomahawk allows him just to pull, to sort of swing his coat aside, and then he can just grab it by the base and pull it up. And then likewise, he can reach across and grab his revolver there. So everything is within reach of his right hand, and that was important just to sort of solve. And so I did spend a number of hours trying to figure out all the gear I wanted on him, and then how he was going to be able to access all of it. And then finally, I do have a lightning effect. This is just from the Marvel Legends Storm figure. And if you've seen the photos, I do have him posed on Instagram, just sort of with the lightning effect wrapped around the arm here. And I really like it. It's soft plastic, so it bends really nicely. And actually holds onto this arm better than it does some of the Marvel Legends figures. And that's just because it's a loose plastic, it doesn't tend to have a very tight grip. And so the larger piece you have under the lightning, the better chance it'll hold. And so the Storm figure and some of the other figures just don't have big enough arms for it to really grab around nicely, but this one does. And so you get a really nice electrical effect there as he's about to, maybe blast someone with this Left Hand of Judgement. So having all of that out of the way, let me orient this Winchester sleeve better. Sort of get it up at that nice angle. There we go. So let's put the hood up on him once again. Let's take a look at him like that. Push him back on the screen there. And I think that looks awesome. He's got great... I think he looks great just like that. You get some great pop of color with the red. Sorry if there was a cut there. My camera decided to stop for some reason. But here we go. Looks really, really nice. And then I know we're going to get a gold tint in the video just a little bit, but let's pop this head off. Take the porcelain head, put that on. And let's get the hood over that as well. And I think that's really scary. You get a really... You almost expect to see someone with a skull mask who's in an outfit like this, and so that really pale porcelain head sets it off totally differently. It's a totally different look, and I really enjoy that as well. I think that's quite intimidating if you're fighting someone with a mask like that on. And so I think both do a very good job, and both really do feel like two different characters, which at the end of the day is what we're going for. Why would you want two heads that feel like they're the same person? We want to transform and give the character multiple feelings as he's being posed around. And so this brings me to the end of my review. I had an incredibly fun time making this guy. It was a big design challenge, especially since normally I work more with sci-fi or with more tactical designs in mind. And so something like this was very new for me, but I enjoyed the challenge of 3D modeling my own heads. And I do plan on having this Dishonored head for sale eventually. I don't know when that will be. I just filled out orders for my anti-venom heads a couple weeks ago. Like 3 people bought them, so thank you to those people who did. And as I continue to 3D model and print stuff, I will be putting a catalog together to sell, and maybe just taking like little pre-order, small batches of orders just to see what the demand is for these different designs. But yeah, I know there's been quite a few people interested, so know that they will be for sale eventually. I just don't know when yet, but you will have a chance to get your hands on them at some point or another. So without further ado, thank you all so much for watching and the constant support. I've actually received a bunch of YouTube subscribers, considering that I haven't touched my channel in like probably about a month now. And so I appreciate everyone who's new to the channel. Hello. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you guys are enjoying the content. And if you want to see more of it, please check out my Instagram page. The handle is Tosh_customs. And I post a little bit more there. I've been infrequent recently just because I've been finishing up my last semester of college, and so that's very exciting. I'll finally be free. But until then, my schedule's been a little bit packed, which is why content's been a little bit sparse here. But know that I am doing things in the background. I'm really working on the 3D modeling side of things, really improving my skill. And hopefully I'll be able to be selling more prints in the future. And it's really expanded what I'm able to do. Something like this is not possible without a 3D printer. You just can't get this level of detail hand sculpting at this size. And so I can't wait to do more of this. And until then, much love. I will catch you all later, and I appreciate all the support you guys have continued to give. Take care.